All right, so we're going to do a lot of playing. It's more than half, but this part I want to share some thoughts with you as well about worship team. And it's not a devotion like we just heard. And it's a blend of things that we need to do as real people and our day-to-day lives and combine it with the spiritual, as Jason talked about. So I have a couple points. And what was great about what Jason just said, and I really did honestly, almost intentionally trust that that would be spirit-led, having not connected and talked through it. And I honestly believe that what Jason would be prepared to say, I had no idea, would totally be in line with what I wanted to say, and it is. That's great. So, so 3 points on the group and individual fundamentals I'd like to outline. First of all, you have to prepare and practice. Like anything in life, right, you have to, Thursday is intended to come here and practice. It's a requirement for the worship team. And we all have busy schedules and sometimes and oftentimes those are kind of rough, but you have to prepare and you have to practice. You have to look at the material, but not only that, you have to get better at your own skill. You have to just continuously do that. I'll give you my own example. So I'm almost 51 years old. I never stopped trying to learn a song. I never stopped trying to, learn scales and learn some theory and just continue the craft, because the beauty of music is it's not perishable in one sense, like a sport with age. You can play it, well into your latter years and worship God and lead congregation but it requires practice, and it requires always learning a skill, and it's endless. And sometimes I catch myself thinking about being in heaven and how much more I'm going to continue that craft to be able to use it, and it's a great thought. Keeps me inspired. One thing I noticed, and I want to talk about a few points for the existing worship team that I would like to just remind people of. And just like anything, I need to be reminded constantly about things just to, oh yeah, I probably should do that. And one of them is, the first one is familiarity with a song. So, and I'm guilty of this too. Sometimes we've played a song for 3 years, and so when Thursday comes along, and we haven't even looked back at it for a long time. And so I challenge you on things like that, to, even if it's 10 minutes, even if it's 20 minutes, an hour, whatever it takes you at your level, if you've done that song before, just to just at least listen to it or look at the chart a little bit and be familiar, instead of, well, I've done this one 4 times. So please do that if you would. Not posting soon enough has been limiting, and I know that kind of hurts a few people in here, but it's really, I think most people are experienced on the team that do that. The tricky part is sometimes when an unfamiliar song gets mixed in that. I have a really crazy travel schedule during the week. And sometimes if they're posted on Monday, I'm not even landing till Wednesday night or Thursday and going right to work. I have no chance other than to listen to it to really go through it. So, our goal is usually like 10 days or 2 weeks, but that's not very common. So. At least if you can do it by the weekend, it gives people a chance to run through it. The sooner the better. I think you guys know what I mean. And then what we do on Thursday mornings, but if you can do it even in the posting, it would be great. But be prepared as the leader to outline what the dynamics of the song are and the order of the song. And that kind of plays to the familiarity. Well, we've always done this. We've always done it this way. So it's always this order. Well, somebody might not know that, even though they've played the song with someone else. So I think every leader has their own way, as you know, and they may play it this way and that way. But if you leaders, I would say, and that's myself included, just be mindful of that in the order of the song and the dynamics that you want. What I find myself doing is probably you do, is you have a version in your head, or the MP3 is posted, and I struggle with this one a lot. Well, the MP3 sounds like this, and we're playing it this way. This is the familiar version, you're doing it this version. So that's why the communication and the outline is really important, because a lot of times you just want your own feel or version, and it's just not quite the same. So just be mindful of that, especially the leaders. That really helps everybody who may not be so familiar, or maybe won't even ask, and it just prepares us better. Okay, so the thing we talk about a lot in these workshops, is point 2, is how can we take the parts of the worship team and multiply them to make a better whole? And I continuously see over the years that I think the thing we continuously need to work on is what is my role? And I think the hardest thing for people to do is not play. Or if you didn't tell anyone anything, they would just play, right? It's just their default is, okay, I'm in, I'm singing, I'm playing. And that's absolutely, if you really stop and think about it, it's absolutely the wrong thing. It's absolutely the wrong thing. Think of any song you hear, and the majority is the dynamics and the up and down and some instrument dropping out, and that makes the song interesting. And it's no different here. So I challenge you on your mindset to just really think about that. Your individual function is to make the whole better. And by doing that, that means listening, first of all, to what other people are doing, having the roadmap outlined like I talked about already. But think about it. Think about how can I arpeggiate the piano? How can I not play? How can I, ring out a chord versus strumming the daylights out of my acoustic guitar? Because the end result is what we're really after, is to make the song is really as good and as worshipful as can be, and connecting with people, which is coming up as the next point. So I have a question for some of you. Focusing people that come in, focusing their minds and getting people to think about God. Because the chaos as we come in here. People are fellowshipping and they have their families and the little kids are running around and people are greeting each other, which is all a beautiful thing. But the music itself really does focus people. But, how do you guys view that part? How do we connect with people? Sometimes, we tell them to stand up, but what we're trying to do is get people really focused in on the connections of thoughts. So I think sometimes we have to say things. Sometimes I think we don't say enough. Andy, I think you're the master. You really are. I commend you on that. Talking about your week is really a great thing. Connecting with people. But the purpose of me bringing that up is I want everyone to be really conscious of that, especially the leaders, and that as the music starts, that in and of itself really kind of gets people to settle down, but not always. But our goal is really to connect with people, however we do that. And I'm not talking just about the first song, because it takes a while to settle the mind as you come in. And I really, as leaders, want you to think about scripture reading and things you can say to people to get them to focus in on their thoughts. Andy, that seems to be a natural for you. You just feel, do you feel that, or is it just, why do you do it the way you do it, maybe?
I think it's something that I've definitely worked at getting better at. I think I've gotten better at it over time. I think when I look at the set of music, I try to think about, because I think sometimes it can be too much, like you can talk too much, and I know that's a tendency for me. Like I start talking, and Kate always is
Okay, so let me say a few things about that. If we just had music and nothing was said, can you feel the difference of what I'm saying? If no one ever said anything and we just played 5 songs and we walked off there, no matter how good the songs were, there's a big difference between engaging people like Liz, you know, she'll go off mic and she'll let the congregation sing, and that's a great connection, you know, and what Andy does to connect to people. So that also includes, it's not just the leaders, as the musicians, as the other singers, you have to be conscious and leave room for that the Spirit lets people, you know, go off script. That's what I'm saying. You have to be prepared for the Spirit to lead that, and I think it's super, super important. So I'm in a sales function in my job. I lead a sales team, and it's natural for me going to customers who just came from a meeting, and the guy you're talking to is carrying his binders and his laptop, and he's there, and he has to be here, and I have to get him here to talk about what I want to talk about, and it's that tactic of storytelling and connecting, and how is it personal, you know, in one way, and I'm just kind of relating. People of mindset coming in here, ultimately our job is to focus them on God in any way, shape, or form, and not just play 5 songs and leave. So I want us to be challenged by that and think about that. I don't have a solution, but I want you to think about that every week to improve what we do and make sure that someone can connect and feel present and pay attention to the lyrics and feel connected to the music. And it's no different than my job or your job. That's how we do things in order to break this and focus this, right? That's why you do what you do.
Can I just add to that? I think that, like, we probably all agree that music is really powerful. Music has the ability to, like, draw us in and play on our emotions and things like that. I think for most people respond to music on some level that way. I think it's also important that we don't, like, I think it's important to have a sort of a connection through the song so that we don't just allow, so that we're not using music as a manipulative tool. You know what I mean? That's like a superficial sort of, well, we got people excited and they raised their hands and we did the job. But like,
We are not that church.
that's like that's a response to like.
We are not that kind of church.
Right, well, right. I know, but I think that, and I know we're not, but I think that sometimes it's easy to just say like, you know, if we got goosebumps or chills or something, to be like, that was amazing and awesome. And maybe it was, but maybe it was like some other, you know, kind of, but we weren't really connected. We were responding to like something really awesome that, you know, someone did who was playing that maybe is drawing our focus to a person as opposed to
Yeah.
God.
What I meant by my statement is we're also not a production. We're as real as it gets.
Yes.
This is from our hearts. And I've had many people say that's what they like about this church. It's not click, 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 production, lights. I mean, we just don't do that. So that's fine. That's a great thing for a lot of people. And but that's not us. And so I connecting with part of what you're saying there. Let me finish these last 2 points. We're doing right on time. So on the worship and the worship team, I want to talk about 2 quick topics. So that's kind of what we need to do as individuals, and you know, on the individual and group side, just a couple points of reminding each of us what to do. So to piggyback on what Jason said, so ultimately worship is a response to God, right? It's for all He's done. So I often think of 2 scenarios specifically for believers, and I'm totally one of them. So people are either in the right frame of mind and heart, and they come in here and they can't wait to praise God. And that may just be a function of their week. It may have been a function of their morning. And people are quite diverse and all over the spectrum on that. You know, where they are spiritually, mature or baby Christian and everything in between. The other scenario, people, so they're in the right frame of mind or they're distracted and they need to be refocused. And that often happens to me. So I try to think when I'm not playing music and I'm just coming here, it's a normal Sunday and not involved in the whole practice part of it, which gets me ready to go, obviously, and focused. But if I'm just coming in, not doing anything with music that week, and that varies quite a bit, so it's probably the same for you. Again, there's so many things that go on in our lives, but worship is a response to God, and then what we're have to be mindful of is, again, focusing people, because they're all over the place. So on the believers, they're in typically one of those two frames of mind, and again, what we're trying to do here is just point them to God, right? I really enjoyed last Sunday's sermon, Jason. It really struck me pretty well. Just getting the heart right is the most important thing. I liked what you said about doing. When you started out, you started to be a doer. Oh yeah, I'll volunteer, I'll do this, I'll do that. And we want to be people that do it as a response to God, that the heart is first, and that's what we're here for. So I think our congregation is really wired that way, and a lot of you folks are all that way, and I think we do a good job. But that first point is, why we do it. Well, worship and the worship team is really helping the congregation. In sense of the believer part, there's going to be people ready to go and people not ready to go, and we just need to really, really do a good job in getting their heart right. And then a welcoming attitude. So you know as well as I do that there's non-believers that come to our church, and they have to be drawn to God. So I wrote a scripture reference here, Colossians 4:4-6. Pray that I will proclaim this message as clearly as I should. Live wisely among those who are not believers, and make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversations be gracious and attractive, so that you will have the right response for everyone. So I don't know about you, but I really am motivated, probably more in a seeker role, to draw people to God. Yeah, I tend to be a little more attracted to that. Some people are more in the shepherding role. They want to nurture people. When Tom explained how his niece, remember, came here, and she gave her life to Christ. He talked about all the seeds that they planted along the way. That's just beautiful. That's, to me, really, and he specifically connected the music that she heard, even though there's obviously other facets that went on that day. But I think that's a powerful thing, and we need to be mindful of the seekers here. I don't know about you, but when I look out and I see newcomers, it seems to me, maybe it's me, that oftentimes they are really, really heavily observing. So sometimes they're from another church, or sometimes they're just not churchgoers, but I think more often than not, they're just coming from another church. And I can feel, I just look out sometimes, and it seems like they're really doing a strong assessment. And I don't know why, but that kind of makes me really want to be as, especially excellent. Like, I really want them to connect to the song. I really want them to feel the worship. I don't know why, but I kind of really pay attention to the believers, or the newcomers, and I really want them to be pointed to Christ. That's just how I'm wired. And I've seen a lot of new people coming through here. So the challenge there, I guess, on the worship and the worship team, on those 2 points before we move on, is just be conscious of the mindset of the believers, and where they're at in a state of mind. And of course, our job is to point them to God in the song and focus their minds with all the people coming in, and then just to be really conscious to the non-believer that they can really hear that message of the gospel, and observe what believers should be doing, and the real praise that comes from our heart. So you probably don't think so, but I would think that people are watching you, and it's kind of a weird thing, because when I'm up here playing music, I really don't think of that. But if I'm out there, I'm kind of, everybody looks,
Now be conscious of that.
everybody, now you're going to think about it too much. But people, I made a mistake, and you're like, so we used to talk about that a lot. So most people don't know when things adrift, but you do. But I think keeping that attitude of everything's cool, this is about God, is really important too.